Monday. uh, Never done a stream on solo stream on the weekdays before, so this is new. Um, but yeah, welcome. Um, I don't know. Today we're just gonna be hanging out basically and talking about Yu-Gi-Oh fandom. Um, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm probably just gonna talk about like my eras of fandom, and then I'll take Q&A from chat. So yeah, but I'm gonna wait maybe about 5 minutes for people to get here because it doesn't look like um many are here yet. So I don't want to start talking about things before people get here. But yeah, hi Zen. Yeah, 24 years. Actually, I think it will be 24 years next month. So, um, and then next year 25 years somehow. So it's just it's been a long journey. I don't know. I kind of feel like the Yu-Gi-Oh panel last Saturday was sort of like a culmination of all of these years, which was really cool. So that's true. We have been in 25 years for a while. Well, because they started with the manga, right? Like they're like it's 25 years of Yu-Gi-Oh celebrating starting with like 1996 with the manga. So um yeah, I don't know. I mean, we're going to hit 30 years with the manga next year. Maybe that'll actually get acknowledged. Maybe it won't. Um but yeah, it's been 25 years for 5 years. You're right. All right. Well, anyway, yeah, I'm just going to wait a few more minutes. How are you, Zen? And it's Labor Day in the US. I don't know. Um it's nice to have the day off. So, got to go back to work tomorrow. Um yeah, I was oh yeah, something big happened yesterday. I started Go Rush. Rarity showed me the first 6 episodes of Go Rush. So, yeah, we're Maiden's new era. Maiden's Bridge era is beginning. So that's exciting. I don't know. There are a lot of people who've been wanting me to watch the Bridge shows for a while, so we're doing it. Um, Also, same thing. I am also rewatching Vrains with her as well, so she's gonna see Vrains through a new perspective, which is fun. And yeah, we had a pretty good time yesterday. How's Go Rush so far? It's an interesting show. Actually, I told her yesterday after we had finished everything. No, it was actually in the middle of I think maybe around like episode 5 or something of Go Rush. And she's like, "So what do you think so far?" And I'm like, "This feels like Yu-Gi-Oh." And she's like, "Thank you so much for saying that cuz like that feels so validating that you say this is like Yu-Gi-Oh because so many people are like this is not like Yu-Gi-Oh." And no, but I was like as we were watching it, I was like, "No, this is super Yu-Gi-Oh." Like this is very Yu-Gi-Oh. This is like the vibes are on point, you know. Anyway, it's core Yu-Gi-Oh. Um I kind of felt like I was watching sort of some of the like goofy parts of DM or GX or Arc 5. So, yeah, very Yu-Gi-Oh. Hi Crow. What am I saying, Crow? Natsumi. Hi Natsumi. How are you? Hi Crow. Oh man. Uh you guys probably know the person I'm thinking of when I said the word crow. Yeah, hi Natsumi. Sorry about that. Hey. Yeah. So the real Crow Hogan in the chat, fellas. Yeah. How are you, Natsumi? Monday. Not working? I hope you're having a good day. Um but yeah, all right. Anyway, I guess I'll get started since it's now 5 minutes past the hour. More people will come. I know they will. But hi, Yuamu. Oh yeah, Rarity explained the UTS thing to me now, so now I understand what that means. Hi, Okra. How are you? Great, 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 great. Not working today, thank goodness. Yes, that's how I feel. So, yeah, so anyway, I'm just gonna I'm just gonna get started basically talking about my time in the fandom. Am I'm thinking of this in terms of 4 eras. And you'll understand why I divided these 24 years into 4 eras. So they're not by years. They're kind of by like domains of things that happened in fandom. So what I'm calling the first era is everything that happened before social media became a thing. So consider things like 2001, which is when I like joined the fandom. Although I didn't actually get the internet till 2003, but I'm considering it 2001 because I was watching the Yu-Gi-Oh DM dub in 2001 on Kids WB, through basically the beginning of 2008, and then second era I'm gonna call that the 5Ds era because that was like for me like when I like really got really deep into spin-off fandom. And I'm going to say this, it's shameful, but before 5Ds, I was a bit of a purist. I know, shocking, I know. It's not that like I didn't like appreciate GX, I just had really no interest in anything other than DM at that point. So I was like a baby purist light up until 2008. Hi Chisaki, welcome, welcome. Yeah, and then 5Ds happened, and that purism was dead. And then what I'm calling the third era is Arc 5 to Vrains. Okay. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I took a break from Yu-Gi-Oh! Between the years of 2011 through like 2014 because of college. I was just way too busy with my undergraduate, and I needed to focus, and it was taking me a long time to graduate. So I just focused on school and I stepped away from Yu-Gi-Oh! I actually didn't have a social media account between the years of 2012 and like 2015. So it was like a 3-year gap that I just did nothing. And because of that, I missed the Zale era. So I came back and I watched Zale later, but I wasn't there for that era. And then the last one I'm going to call the current era. This is where we are now. This is today. Where I'm beginning to watch Go Rush, and kind of wondering where the franchise is going. So yeah. Oh, Lydia, yeah, we did meet in 2008. Everybody guys here, chat, Ganymede is my friend Lydia. I have known her since like when 5Ds just started, and we have stayed friends ever since. She's part of my OG friend gang in the fandom. I say like OG friend gang because I haven't really like stayed in contact with many of the DM era people. It's kind of like 5Ds forward. That's like my core Yu-Gi-Oh crew. But yeah, Lydia has seen me grow up from an 18-year-old watching 5Ds to, you know, a 35-year-old who is now a VTuber. So yeah, a lot has happened over these, 18 years? That's crazy. That's actually crazy. I think I joined when S3 dub of GX was airing on TV, and I was so annoyed that I had no idea what was happening due to airing schedule, so I watched it online, found out about S4, and well, yeah, I will talk about that. The airing schedule for the dubs was not regular back in that era, so it was a little hard to actually find things if you weren't, like, tuning in right away. Did I enjoy Sevens Go Rush? I haven't watched Sevens yet. I think you joined after I said this, but Rarity Fangirl Rarity, she introduced me to Go Rush episodes yesterday, so we just started. We left off at episode 6, so she's gonna push me through the entire show, and we're having fun so far. Rush duels, do I like Rush duels? I'd say I like Rush duels just as much as any other Yu-Gi-Oh duel. I'm a fan writer, okay? So I've never really been a TCGer. And for me, it's sometimes difficult to just follow duels. I really like duels for their storytelling aspect and how they sort of drive the overall story forward. And so basically like using duels as a story telling device, really. So But yeah, I mean, the Go Rush duels are kind of easy to follow because they're not so many rules, you know. Oh no, it's okay, it's okay. I mean, I already know that Sevens is linked to Go Rush, but the thing is, Rarity thought that she could get me into Go Rush for a very specific reason, um, because of a particular ship that I like from Vrains. So I trust her. She knows what she's doing. And actually, I think she got into Go Rush first, and she's now watching Seven. So, she's kind of going backwards. But yeah, let me talk about the first era. So I started watching Yu-Gi-Oh back in 2001. And it was interesting that year because if you know anything about 2001, there was a really big thing that happened in New York that year, right? And actually, they delayed. Yes, the reason was YuGiOh and Udius. Good guess. They delayed beginning the DM dub because of 9/11. I think it was actually delayed 2 weeks after. It was actually going to start like right when that happened. And I do remember 9/11. I was 11 years old. I saw the whole event. So at that time I was watching Saturday morning cartoons beginning at the age of 7. So I had been watching what was back then Kids WB for 4 or 5 years at that point. And Saturday morning cartoons were really interesting because there were multiple networks that were airing them. And at the time, like I said earlier, you could only watch something on TV, right? This was before the streaming era. Everybody had dial-up if they even had internet in their house, right? So if you didn't catch the episode live on TV when it aired, and by the way, Yu-Gi-Oh! DM had a crazy schedule, okay? Sometimes it would start at 7 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes it would be at 11 o'clock in the morning. It kind of just depended. But most of the time it was 7 o'clock in the morning. So I was the kind of kid who had a hard time getting up in the morning. But oh man, I was up at 6:30, 6:45 Saturday morning to catch Yu-Gi-Oh! At 7 o'clock in the morning. I was so into it, right? And up to that point, I mean, I had mostly been watching Pokemon on the channel because we had Pokemon. We had some American cartoons like Jackie Chan Adventures, Shaolin Showdown. I think Shaolin Showdown might have started later in the DM era on Kids WB. I don't quite remember. And I had actually started out watching what at the time was called Card Captors, which you probably know better as Card Capture Sakura. And that was in 1997, and it aired on the block, and that was before I even knew what anime was. And I was watching Pokemon before I knew what anime was. So it was interesting because for kids entertainment, when they licensed Yu-Gi-Oh!, they were licensing it from the perspective of, we are going to make this like an American cartoon, and that's what the focus was. It had heavy censorship. The voice acting was really over the top. They really just wanted to emulate cartoons at the time, right? And a lot of English dubs were like that in that era. But, here I was 11 years old watching the show and knowing nothing about it. And of course, all that stuff went over my head because I didn't know anything about the original show, right? But I remember being very interested in Seto Kaiba. Even from the age of 11, I was like, oh, this character is really cool. Even before I knew what characters were, right? I was like, he's really cool. He's he's doing all these cool things, right? Even though me in a later age would be like, Kaiba's kind of a bully, right? But yeah, I liked it. I liked it from the age of 12, and then 11, right? And then I spent, gosh, I was in the 5th grade back then. That's crazy. I spent my 6th grade, just watching Yu-Gi-Oh, right? And then in 2003, I got dial-up. So that was the beginning of oh, you can watch things. But the thing is, back in the dial-up era, it was 144p, 240p. You couldn't see anything. And it also took you like five hours or longer to download something. And like the 5 hour thing was like a clip, right? If you wanted to download an episode, good luck. Um, internet was like super just so slow back then. This is the era of like Winamp. Now, 2003 Yu-Gi-Oh Fandom was interesting because this was 5 years before the beginning of social media. So what we had back then was AOL Instant Messenger. I think MSN may have started around that time. And what was it called? Oh gosh, I can't remember. The something protocol. I'm sorry. Is it like IRQ? I'm sure someone in chat knows what I'm talking about. But so I spent my first years in the Yu-Gi-Oh fandom online on AOL Instant Messenger. And at that time, there were these Yahoo chat rooms. Like, they were public chat rooms. And I don't even know, like, how this came about. It just existed, right? There was a Yu-Gi-Oh chat room. So, you know, here I was at the age of 13 going into this chat room, right, with all these strangers. Now, the thing about AOL is that there were no pictures, right? It was just text. Just pure text. So imagine it's just like this like space where everybody is just chatting in text and everybody has their own, like their username is like decorated in a font that they chose and a color that they chose, and everyone is discussing things all in the same space. And some people are role-playing, and some people are like, hey, does anybody watch the show? Is anybody playing the card game? It was really chaotic. I remember instances of people doing like the Yami Hikari type RPs that used to happen in the day. If you don't know what that is, if you're like Gen Z or younger, the whole like Yami Hikari thing was like Yami Yugi, Yami Bakura, Yami Malik, and then they're right, like they're light sides, so to speak. There was a lot of shipping of that going on back then. And I remember one time I don't know, I think I was like trying to like ask someone like, are you, like, did you watch the latest episode that aired this Saturday? And meanwhile, there is a Yugi role player sitting on a Yami Yugi's lap, and they're role playing this in the chat. And at the same time, there is like a Yami Bakura and a Ryo. They're also role playing in the chat at the same time. It was extremely chaotic. Looking back, it was very, very funny. But what basically ended up happening with that is that I think Yahoo sold ad space on the groups, on these like group chat rooms. And so suddenly they became sponsored. And when they became sponsored, rules were implemented. And so that kind of role playing kind of died, right? And it's like, oh no, the chat rooms are becoming corporate, right? Like, my 13, 14-year-old self was like, no, the corporation, without really knowing like what that meant, right? And then I moved over to MSN, actually. So I was doing role playing with a group of people. We were doing like ancient Egyptian memory arc world role play, and I was preset. These people were they were regular. I mean, they were always on there, right? There was always somebody to talk to. And we did these like really long role plays over MSN Messenger. Obviously, all of this has been lost to time, but I had a lot of fun. Unfortunately, we had our Mahad. I think he was like a graduate student or something. Anyway, unfortunately, he passed away. His name was Jesse. Rest in peace, Jesse. And around that time, I think I moved over to Gaia Online. And the thing with Gaia is that Gaia was like, you had guilds and you had forums. And the guilds were private forums. And so I remember joining this Seto Kaiba guild in like 2004. And then in like the public forums, there were all these people who were just doing various roleplay in like I think it was like the anime section of the forums on Gaia. But like we had like a whole like little close-knit community of people in the Seto Kaiba Guild. And I don't even remember like how it even happened. Like I got promoted to like a moderator or something in there, or maybe I was an admin. I don't remember. But I was like doing all these like graphics and things for the community. And actually that was where I first learned about the Yu-Gi-Oh! DM ship list. The ship list, which has like 200 shippings on it, and most people only know maybe 10 ships from that list. You know, and at the time we were introduced to this, and I was like, whoa, this is really cool. Like every character is paired with every character, and they all have names. So that's, you know, that's when I was introduced to things like pride shipping and puzzle shipping and puppy shipping. It's now called violet shipping, I believe. Tender shipping, and some ship names that I'd rather not repeat because they haven't aged well. But yeah, just like 200 something now. No, but Zen, that was for one show, okay? That was 200 for one show. DM era people were something else, okay? The ship list, I remember this list. Yeah, shout out to puzzle shipping. But it was at this era that I became a pride shipper. So pride shipping is like Seto Kaiba and Yami Yugi, right? So I was obsessed with their dynamic, like in the show. And it was also around this time that there was a girl in my middle school who drew, she was like doing like anime art. Her name was Samantha. And Samantha was actually the one who introduced me to Shonen Jump. I think it was 2003 when Shonen Jump started running. And that was my first exposure to the true DM. Not the 4Kids stuff that we were getting. No, the violent stuff, the real stuff. And, you know, being like a 13, 14-year-old, I was like, oh, I'm being led in on a secret here, right? Like, I gotta know, you know, like what's the actual story that they're not telling us. I was a little bit of a conspiracy theorist, preteen, early teen. It's funny thinking back on that now. But they published Shonen Jump as like a magazine, and it was sold in bookstores. You could buy it at the now long defunct Borders bookstore. Rest in peace, Borders. I loved that bookstore as a kid. You know, and some places sold it. I think like maybe comic book shops sold it. But I specifically remember buying it at Borders. And you know, they were really trying to, yeah, rip Borders, you remember. They were really trying to promote like the uncut DM, right? And, you know, get teenagers into that. So there was like a slight demographic difference between the show that was airing on TV and the story that was being published in the magazine. Like a clear difference. It's like, oh, like, what is this, right? And if you know anything about the early DM arc, it is violent. It's really violent. The 1998 Toei series does not even really cover a lot of what's in that original early manga. And some of it just changes. Like there's some things in the early manga that are not in the Toei series. So I personally will never call the Toei series season 0 because it's not. It's not. But yeah, so it's, and I remember like there was this Shonen Jump cover that was released. It was either, I want to say it was 2003. And it said Kaiba's here. And I was like, oh, it's that guy I like. So yeah. So at school we were reading Shonen Jump, and on Saturdays I was watching the dub, right? And then I think sometime around 2006, I discovered this community called Play the Damn Card. Play the Damn Card was a community on LiveJournal. And Play the Damn Card was run by DM fans. Although there were some GX people there. But the GX people were not really welcome. They were kind of shunned. And the head moderator made, like, the GX posts, they had to be locked. Because she didn't want anybody to see the shame of the spinoff. Yeah, it's really silly thinking back on that era now. But yeah, no, she was super controlling, and she wanted to like curate her community that way. And a lot of the fandom was like that back then, right? It's like there's DM, and then there's the stepchild who we don't talk about, GX, right? And in that era, I was, I was just associated with DM people, right? I was just specifically associating with Pride shippers. And we started a community on, I think it was like the anyway, old forum software from the 2000s, right? Um, and it was called Fragile Balance. Fragile Balance was run by a bunch of Pride shipper writers specifically. We did have artists on there, but the vast majority of the active people were writers who were writing this ship. And I ended up becoming a co-admin of the community. And like before, I was making graphics. It's really cute to think about this now. I was doing like monthly banners for the forum. So each time a new month would start, I would upload a new banner, to the top of the community, featuring artwork of the ship that I found online. And yeah, I mean, it was really fun, right? So that's era number 1. Era number 2, 5D's era. So February, I want to say it was February 2008, news came out that there was going to be a new Yu-Gi-Oh series. And the DM purists didn't like this because they're like, oh, we've already had one. What do you mean there's going to be another one? Is Yu-Gi at least in it? Yeah, they were really disparaging. And they said some pretty terrible things about 5Ds when it was first announced. But I looked at the character designs and I'm like, these look cool. So early April 2008, I tuned in and somebody made a thread on Play the Damn Card about the first episode of 5Ds. It had to be locked, but it was there. And how did we watch this episode? I'm trying to remember. I don't know. Somebody recorded it somehow. It recorded it. They uploaded it somewhere. There were no subtitles yet, but I watched it and I was like, this is cool. This is really cool. And so began my journey into spin-off fandom. Thus the Seafood Trio was born. Yes. And for me, it's like when I was watching 5Ds, I'm like, this is actually not all that different from DM. They're just on motorcycles. And actually, the art style was a lot more mature than DM. I don't know why people don't like this. So we carried on for the next few years on there, having to lock all of our posts. But I remember, I remember the night that episode 33 aired. And episode 33 is the beginning of the 2 Team Satisfaction episodes. Episode 33 broke Play the Damn Card. I think we had like 500 something posts. And then the next week, episode 34, we broke it again. We had there were 1,000 comments on that thread. And for context, the vast majority of posts, on Play the Damn Card never got above 100 posts. So we broke it and the mod was not happy about this. But yeah, I really enjoyed early 5Ds. Yeah, exactly. So much screaming, staying up until 3:00 in the morning. For me, it was 5 o'clock in the morning because I'm on the West Coast, and not sleeping. Fans who look through nostalgia glasses don't like changes and are hard to adapt to new stuff. So the easiest way for them is to hate the new shows. The thing is, at the time, it wasn't about that. It was literally about Yu-Gi-Oh is not Yu-Gi-Oh without Yugi. This was their sticking point. Where is Yugi? If the original cast is not in the show, it's not Yu-Gi-Oh. They didn't care about anything else. They're just like, why are they making more shows that don't have Yugi and the original cast in it? We want to see Kaiba. That's seriously all it was. DM purism hating was a different type of hating. I mean, they were extreme haters. Um, but you know, we enjoyed our time. A lot of threads, a lot of role plays. LiveJournal was notorious for its role playing communities. They were called dressing rooms back then. I still don't really understand why that term was called that. I think it maybe has something to do with like putting on a character, you know, like an outfit. But there were dressing rooms for DM. There was a GX dressing room. There was a 5Ds dressing room. And, you know, there was a lot of that like insular thinking happening at the time where you can't really associate with people who, you know, are into things that you're not into, right? So, I feel that the integration that we have now, it really would not have come about if it wasn't for social media happening, right? So my first social media website was Twitter. back in 2008. And I remember staying up, you know, for 5Ds. And the thing that was really cool about the 5Ds Japanese voice actors specifically is that they watched the show with us. So I remember one night, Yuya Miyashita, who is the Japanese voice of Yusei, he posted that night that Bruno died in the show. He was like, "Did you all watch?" And we replied back to him in, you know, like broken Japanese, like, "We watched, it was so sad." And, you know, he would reply, right? Jack Seiyu would reply. Kiryu Seiyu was also really, he was really active on Twitter. And it was cool. That was my first time interacting with the Japanese voice actors like that. And it was like a live interaction. So, and to this day, Yuya Miyashita, what's his name? Takanori? I think his name is Takanori. Takanori Hoshino, and a few of the other cast, they still will reply to each other as the characters on Twitter, like today. It's so cute. When they just did the 5Ds rebroadcast in April, I saw Miyashita and Hoshino like quoting each other in character. 5Ds really brought them together. It was a special little show. Yeah, so I don't know why they insist on bringing Yugi back when he's clearly like gone. I mean, he graduated, right? Like, let the guy go off to college. Yugi was a GX for like 5 seconds at the beginning and toward the end, and duel at the end. That's enough. It's true. Yeah, people that were like, GX doesn't have Yugi. I'm like, yes, it does. He's there. The good old days of Twitter. Yes. A lot of it was trying out new RP characters before applying. Oh, okay. That makes sense. Yeah, RP communities were huge on LiveJournal back then. And they still are on Dreamwith today, which is the successor to LiveJournal. The unofficial fan art of Yusei with a pink brawn is, oh my gosh. Yeah, if you've never seen the fan art that was drawn where Yusei has a bra on his head, it's something special. It's something really special. But I'm pretty sure that was actually drawn by the 5D's character designer, Shuji Maruyama. And actually, he got in trouble with people because back in the day, he was posting fan art of the characters, but because he was involved with Gallop in an official capacity, they were like, "Why are you taking these characters and changing them, like making them do weird things?" So he stopped. I found that out maybe 3 years ago or something, quite recently. Poor Maruyama. But yeah, and then so like I said, I left. I didn't like leave. I went on like a hiatus from the fandom around 2012, and I came back around 2014 I started watching Arc 5. And still in this era, if you wanted to watch Arc 5, you had to watch fan subs. You had to go to a shady fan sub website and watch fan subs. So I managed to, catch some of the Arc 5 episodes. And I was like, this is a cute show. This is a really cute show. The cast is younger, but it's cute. And I like the storylines. And then in August 2015, I made my Maiden Days Twitter account, which just celebrated its 10-year anniversary like 2 days ago, which is crazy to me. But the Arc 5 era was interesting because it was around the Arc 5 era that we really started to get merchandise for Yu-Gi-Oh! There had been some merchandise in the 2000s, not very much of it. The merchandise that was available if you didn't import it yourself was that, like, I'm sure everyone has seen it. The same DM graphics on every backpack, every t-shirt. That you could buy at Target or Walmart, right? In the US. And we got, I think, like, we got some of the very first, like, scale figures in sometime around 2010, 2011. I remember buying Kaiba back then, the Kaiba scale figure that was made by Kotobukiya. But we didn't, like, really, like, have a lot of merchandise that, like, you could readily, easily buy, and it was, like, coming out all the time until around the Arc 5 era. And I definitely think that it probably had something to do with, like, DSOD coming out. Sort of, like, revitalizing the Yu-Gi-Oh fandom. But they were releasing spin-off merchandise, and a lot of it, and on a regular basis. And this was also the time that they started doing collaboration cafes. So a collaboration cafe, if you don't know, it's basically a cafe held in a like a building, in places like Akihabara, Ikebukuro, these, like, nerd cities in Japan, right? And they will do a limited collaboration. So they'll have, like, food, they'll have drinks that are themed around the show. And when they're doing that, they also have merchandise you can buy, keychains. So I remember the Animate Cafe being, like, a big thing. And I think they did Animate Cafe maybe once or maybe 2-3 times. There was a lot of merchandise that came out of that. With DSOD, they had the Tower Records collaboration with the cast. And I think that is, like, some of the coolest art that we've ever gotten. I have a keychain with Kaiba on it, and he's, like, holding a teacup and drinking tea or drinking coffee. And it's drawn by Kagami, the lead. Okay, he wasn't, like, the lead animator for DM, but he's the animator for DM that, like, everybody knows, like, the god animator, right? He did original illustrations for this, which were really cool. Arc 5, when I got myself into fandom proper, right around when Synchro Dimension Arc began. Yeah. I will talk about Arc 5, actually, so it was very entertaining. Yeah, that's when you got to know me, Lenny. There's a lot of people I know in this fandom that I've known for a very long time. I've known Lenny now for, 10 years? Yeah, it's been that long. What's a pendulum? Synchro what? They finally figured out we're grown and got money to spend. Yeah, I mean, that is part of it. Because the people who originally watched DM, they would have been in their 30s by then, right? Or late 20s. So you got adult money you can spend. Time stopped moving so fast. But yeah, I mean, there was just this shift. There was this shift in the way that merchandisers were thinking of Yu-Gi-Oh! In this era. And now we have merchandise coming out all the time. There's the Kaiba Corp store. There's this, I think it's like EEO store. They release, like, collaboration merchandise. We have all the COSPA stuff. Anybody remember Chairgate? And then Fencegate. COSPA has actually stopped releasing those for some reason. I think they stopped at 5Ds. I've been waiting for more of them to come out. I was like, when is the Vrains fence art gonna be released? But yeah, so the other thing about Arc 5 is that there was I'd say like, not like a huge tonal shift in terms of like the actual show, but we were entering like the third era of Gallop god tier animators, right? Because he started out with Kagami-san, Kagami-sama, whatever you want to call him, Kagami-sensei. And then his protege was, oh my gosh, I'm blanking at the moment. I know his name, the guy who did the 5D stuff. It will come back to me. And then people like Hyde Ebina learned from that guy, and then we had No Gilbo. And No Gilbo became like the big person like everybody knew, like in the Vrains era, right? And it was really interesting because you could see how the art, yes, thank you, Kenichi Hara, thank you. I can't believe I forgot his name. Hara-san, yes. There was a real like shift in not so much the art style, but the way that things were being colored. And I think that has to do with the transition from 4:3 in the DM GX era into 720 widescreen in the 5Ds era, into true HD in the Arc 5 Vrains eras. The way that they were animating things, right? But the arts kept getting better. The animation kept getting better. And, even today, people praise Zale for its animation, like consistent animation. People love Zale's animation, right? And when I was watching Vrains with Rarity yesterday, one of the comments she made was, I remember the Vrains animation being good, but I don't remember it being this good. There's a lot of like little details that we forget about, that Studio Gallop really improved on over the years. And so, like, shout out to Studio Gallop. I hope they get to come back sometime. Hi, Caro. Welcome. But yeah, so that, that gets us, into the current era, right? Where we're now in the rush shows. The weekly TV anime has stopped. We don't know when it's going to come back. As we know by now, there was no news at the YuGiOh panel. And we're hoping that there will be some news at Jump Festa this year. Cross your fingers. There was a leak of the special stages for Jump Festa. Now, I don't know how accurate that leak is. I think it's kind of early for a leak, but 5Ds was not listed on there. So, not 5D, sorry. YuGiOh was not listed on there. Of course, 5Ds was not listed, but YuGiOh was not listed on there. So, cross your fingers for news. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's really interesting because I have watched the fandom go through all of these eras where like people's mindsets have changed. And one of the most like jarring things over the last few years is seeing GX and 5Ds be praised as like god tier golden era shows. If you guys saw that tweet from the other day. And it's just like the fandom's attitude toward the older shows has like completely shifted, because I remember being a spin-off fan in 2008 and being attacked by DM fans, by DM purists, and also DM abridged fans. This is a core memory for me. It's a core memory for a lot of people. And so now it's like you look back and it's like, oh yeah, GX and 5Ds were always cool. I'm like, you guys. I mean, yes, they were always cool, but you did not act that way back then. And like today, I mean, the people that I find that tend to be the most disparaging about the later shows are TCG players. I don't know why that is. It has been like consistent, right, from that community, and I really hope that someday they learn, to be nice, because we really need to bridge, the TCG and the anime communities, because they have been siloed for so long, and especially in this era, Yes, girl pro tag. Please give us a girl pro tag. But it's different. It's different. The negativity that I see today is way different than way back in the day. And so in that regard, I would say we have improved as a fandom. It's not perfect, but we have improved. We have improved. Things have gotten better over time. And if you're a person who has had to deal with negativity in the Yu-Gi-Oh fandom, like recently, you might be thinking, there's no way this era is better than past eras. I guarantee you this era is a lot better. Just some people are opinionated. They're very loud with their opinions, and they just want to sow discord in the community. So I always say all Yu-Gi-Ohs are good Yu-Gi-Ohs, and I hope that other people will pass on that sentiment and will advertise the various shows to their friends and get people into the fandom, because that's what we need right now, especially when there's no new series. Yeah, so I think I'm gonna shift to Q&A now, because we're an hour 46 into the stream, or 46 minutes into the stream. Sorry. That way I could give chat the opportunity to ask questions. So, let me see. What do we got? A lot of movement feels really cool and epic from Gallop. Yeah, it's true. They got really good at animation and making even the most simple animation look really fluid. Summoning circles for Yu-Gi-Oh news. Yes, cross your fingers. I have a question, new Yu-Gi-Oh possibility-wise. Do you think would get a girl pro tag? Do you think it will happen soon or even next? The thing is, we've already gotten a female protagonist. That's Yuamu, right? But in terms of like what Pokemon did, where it's like there's a girl at the helm, I think one day. I don't know. I mean, shonen anime in Japan is still very segregated between girls and boys and things that are like deemed for girls and boys. And I don't know if they would make a female protagonist for that reason. And I mean, and I know that the way that people behave in this fandom, she would probably get mercilessly attacked just for being a girl. So I don't want to see that, but I hope it happens someday. Or at least they're able to, create a female protagonist who can be alongside a male protagonist. Maybe there'll be like multiple shows airing. But yeah, I would love to see it. I've been waiting for it since the Arc 5 era, basically. I hope we get it someday. Yeah. A bridge unintentionally really hurt rep. Yeah. I'm not going to talk about that for personal reasons, but I'm glad that things are changing today. Most TCG fans I've met don't even watch the anime. Yeah, that's another thing. And it's kind of always been that way, actually. There are people who just got into the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG for whatever reason, through whatever avenue, and they never had any interest in watching the show or reading the original manga. They know nothing about Yu-Gi-Oh! And sometimes when they're really opinionated, they will talk to you as if they know things, and you'll be reading what they say, and you're like, you don't know anything about this. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. So, but I feel like more people are beginning to bridge that gap. I'm beginning to see it. So I have, I have hope. Yeah. JoJo Pokemon have girl protagonists. It's time. Yes. Agreed. All female main cast Yu-Gi-Oh series would be interesting. It would be. I have seen plenty of fan designs for female protagonists and female rivals, and they're all very cool. A lot of people have really good ideas. It could definitely be pulled off. Just don't have a certain scenario writer at the helm, if you know who I'm talking about. Yeah. I'm on a mission for all girl cast in Yu-Gi-Oh! You can make it happen, Zed. You make your all girl cast. So what was the fandom's reaction to Zale initially? What was the fandom's reaction to Zale? So like I said, I left the fandom around that time. I remember it, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, if you were there in that era and you experienced this yourself. I feel it was kind of muted, honestly. People saw that there was going to be yet another Yu-Gi-Oh series, and they kind of just didn't really react, right? I don't really remember there being much buzz about the concept either. I do remember that some people thought that the the scanners that they wear on their eyes, I'm sorry, I forget what they're called, were really cool. And people thought that the shift to virtual reality was kind of cool. It's just, there was a different reception by that point. Yes, the D-gazer, thank you. Because the DM purists had already been hating for like a decade at that point. I think a lot of them were starting to tire themselves out. But from what I know of the YuGiOh fandom, a lot of it was existing on Tumblr. Because this was the beginning of the Tumblr era, right? A lot of that fandom was insular into places like Tumblr. It wasn't really interacting much. And this is kind of a funny story that some YuGiOh fans have told me. There was an incident with the Free fandom where I think it was what's his name? Oh, I'm sorry, my memory is failing me. The main character of Free, the guy that has black hair, him and Rin, who is the guy that has shark teeth. The Free fandom was calling that ship shark bait. Well, the YuGiOh fandom was also calling Shark and Yuma shark bait, so they kind of went to blows in the tags. But yeah, so I don't know who ended up winning that war. Somebody let us know if you know. But Haruka, yes, thank you. Free was the show where all of the main cast were named after girls. All the boys had girl names. I remember this. But yeah, there was a different shift happening. The other thing that happened is that around 2011, one of the big Yu-Gi-Oh forum communities, J-Anime, shut down. I don't remember a lot of the details about what this happened because I wasn't really active on J-Anime. But I think what happened is that the person who originally owned the site needed to leave for some reason, and then this other guy took over, and then he started taking the community in a direction that people didn't like. So they migrated away from J-Anime over to what is today known as NeoArc Cradle. And I think that forum still exists right now. There's a lot of archived Yu-Gi-Oh episodes on that forum, things that were carried over from J-Anime, because J-Anime was it was an archive website in a lot of ways. Yeah, I think NeoArc Cradle still exists actually. So let's see. Phantom's reaction. I could hear the Twitter comments being typed out as we speak. I'm scared. I thought Yuamu, Yuhi were the Go Rush main pro tags, but then they put UDS in the middle official art. So I was like, yeah, again, like I said, I'm just beginning to watch Go Rush, but Rarity told me that a lot of people were upset that it felt like the, people weren't really sure who the actual protagonist of Go Rush was. I'll just put it that way. So Yuama didn't really get the focus that she should have gotten in the show. That's my understanding. And I mean, the way that female characters have been treated in Yu-Gi-Oh historically has been not so great. I mean, Aki is famous for being called a bench warmer. But it has to do with the legacy of shonen anime, right? I think things are changing today, but historically, girls in shonen were seen as love interests. And even going into, the YuGiOh era, I remember a lot of people were upset because Katori wasn't getting screen time and she was really being sidelined. And, then when Arc 5 aired, it was you got all these female characters and they're all being put on the shelf. And then, of course, we know how people were upset about Aoi, right, in Vrains. And, from what I've heard, the Rush era has done a much better job of girl character representation, which I think is awesome. But we've had some good female characters over the years. I mean, Isis was really strong. Carly was good for a while, right? And then Emma Emma, right? Emma's a great character from Vrains. So I would say it has gotten better. Yeah, I think it has gotten better. So there are a lot of ancient artifacts on Tumblr. Have fun diving, Caro. One of the interesting things about Tumblr that doesn't happen with Twitter and some other social media is that on Tumblr, you can find things from 10 years ago and things will resurface. Once enough time has passed on Twitter, things go into the ether, you will never find them again. And today, unfortunately, the indexing on that app is awful. I will search for my own tweets and other people's tweets will pop up. So I can't even find tweets that I made 5 years ago on that app. It's really sad. All I remember in the first half of Zale was kind of clowned on, Yuma being a big part of why, but then suddenly everyone loves Zale too. I think it just had to do with the tone shift. So I watched Zale and I watched GX in the Arc 5 era. Specifically because I wanted to understand like the third arc, the third and fourth arcs of Arc 5. So, you know, my perspective on that is, it's a little different, I'd say. Because I look at the shows as like a product of their time, right? And I remember when I was watching Zale, I definitely noticed the tone shift. The first half is, it's kind of goofy, right? And then the second half, it's like very serious. And tearjerker. Oh my gosh, Zale is such a tearjerker. But yeah. Bazooka shipping. J-Anime, my lifeline. I remember having DSL internet early back in the day and downloading DM soundtrack things from the music section of J-Anime. Yeah. Oh gosh, the Aki benchwarmer meme. It did not help one of the EDs, or OPs literally called her a benchwarmer. It was an ED. I don't remember which ED, but I do remember specifically the frame where it just says in English text, benchwarmer. Aki could have done so much. She could have done so much more. Yeah. She should have been more into the team. Or like she and Sherry honestly should have like joined together in WRGP and joined a team together. That would have been cool. I know they did in the manga, but yeah, I would have liked to see her do more. Yeah, sadly, Rush Girls were very good. What do you mean, sadly? I feel like there's still a lot of things that could still improve, hopefully so. Yeah, I think it just has to do with changing perspectives. And specifically the people that are making the shows, right? Because a lot of the people that are doing anime production for shonen anime, or, you know, historically, right? Those people grew up with a very specific type of anime when they were kids back in the 70s and 80s. And so you tend to carry on what you experience as a child. So I feel that, like, you know, with like the newer generations, they want to change things, right? But it just takes time, really. I think it's just a generational thing. Oh, I mean, it was unfortunate the previous series didn't write girls that well, but it improved. Yeah, I agree with you. Shout out to Shin Yoshida. Oh my gosh. But yeah, it's just focus. Also, I feel part of it is Konami needing to focus on their card game in the show, and certain archetypes were always more popular, and a lot of those archetypes were not played by female characters in the Gallop era. And because of that, you know, like one example I could think of is Salaman Great, right? Takero got heavily pushed in the second season of Reigns, and Salaman Great was a very popular archetype. I think it still is. So it's understandable from a marketing standpoint why Konami would push for that, right? And the other thing too is that beginning in the DM era, the production committees for the anime series were a lot bigger. There were a lot more players. The original like the original like 2 shows. You know, you had Konami, you had TV Tokyo, you had Nihon Ad Systems, and there might have been some other stakeholders, part of the production committee, who wanted things a certain way. By the time we got to the Vrains era, the only companies that were involved at that point were Konami, TV Tokyo, NAS, and I feel like NAS wasn't really involved all that much. You could tell by the commercials that were airing during the live broadcasts what was airing. There was this famous shampoo commercial from the 5Ds era, Lux shampoo. It was almost like Lux shampoo was sponsoring 5Ds, because it was on every single ad break for like 2 years. Lux shampoo. Yeah, but around like the Arc 5 Vrains era, most of the commercials were TCG or OCG. So it just kind of like gives you an idea of like where the focus was in terms of money and who wanted to fund the series. Yeah. Yu-Gi-Oh! Tumblr girl years ago. You can't even look at 100 pictures backwards anymore on Twitter. It's true. It just times out. You can't even look up tweets from 2 years ago, honestly. Yeah. Elon Musk broke our app. Rush Duel era girls are really good. Not perfect, but compared to before. I wish Yuamu and Romine would meet and have fun chatting and rush dueling. That would be really cute. That'd be really cute. One of the things that I liked about early Arc 5 is that Yuzu had a lot of interaction with other girls. A lot of interaction. Like, she should have been the protagonist of that show. It's really funny you say when Trickstar was a menace during the Link era of TCG. I never finished Vrains, so I don't know if Aoi popped up in the show or if she just eventually got sidelined. So Aoi actually got 3 different outfits in the show. She got more outfits than anybody. But she kind of just sort of goes away in terms of focus. You know, she gets defeated by Takeru, then I think she also gets defeated by Bowman? Am I remembering that correctly? Somebody please correct me. And then there's the interaction with her brother, and then she's just not really there in the last part of the show. It's kind of sad. And so the later part of Reigns doesn't have any Aoi duels in it. So again, kind of reflecting like what the focus was, right? Robbed of 6 more months of show. I will never not be mad. So the thing about Yu-Gi-Oh, the way that Yu-Gi-Oh aired for a really long time. Yu-Gi-Oh began in 1999 and DM ended in the fall of 2003. And then GX started. And then GX ended in March of 2008. And then 5Ds went from April 2008 to March of 2011, and we had the same pattern for Zale and for Arc 5. So we were expecting that for Vrains, right? Because it's like you have at least 4 shows, right, that have all started and ended at the same time. 5 shows. And so we were just expecting that for Vrains, and then suddenly it's like it's being canceled. What do you mean? It was supposed to go until March, and it didn't. It ended in September. So that for me was when it became difficult for me to predict what would happen in terms of new Yu-Gi-Oh. And the other thing is that for at least beginning with Zale, I don't know if this was the case before that, because I don't know how GX was announced, right? I was quite young at the time. And I know 5Ds was announced, I believe, in a magazine. I remember seeing the magazine scans. So we at least had Zale and Arc 5 that were announced at Jump Festa. So, and Vrains also, right? So we were expecting that the next show would be at Jump Festa. And then it wasn't, right? So I have been more wrong with my predictions over these last few years than I ever was in the past. Just because they don't do things that way anymore. You just can't know. You just can't know. And the thing with the Yu-Gi-Oh panel, the reason why I thought there might be some kind of announcement, I was never going to say there was going to be an anime news announcement, but some kind of announcement, is that a lot of companies in the current era, they are announcing things at cons, at foreign cons. So it was never outside the realm of possibility that that could have happened. It obviously didn't happen, but it could have happened, right? If you want to hear more about this, watch the stream that I did with Rarity last week on Tuesday. But it's just like the pattern has been broken, right? So we really just don't know what's going to happen next. And that kind of sucks. I think Trickstar was also pretty popular, though. I do remember it was pretty popular. But popularity and in terms of what Konami wanted to be popular, very different things. Very different things. And we saw that in past series, right? We saw that in 5Ds. Crow got a lot more backstory than he was, maybe intentionally meant to get because Blackwings were so popular, right? And it's just like that. And I love Crow, by the way. Let me just say, I love Crow. I think he's a fantastic character. When he was introduced in 5Ds, it was so cool. He flew across the canyon in his bike with the wings on it. But it's just that it's like not knowing where your focus should be. Do you want to put your focus on your storytelling, or do you want to put it on what makes money? And that has always been Yu-Gi-Oh's problem. And now they haven't brought Rush duels outside of Japan, which is so weird to me. Like, you guys created Rush tools because you thought that the original format had gotten too complicated. Don't you think that kids outside of Japan might want to play that? Anyway, it's another rant for another time. Again, I think Rarity and I talked about this in our stream. So and now 5 years after it ended, they're pushing the characters with the cards for Vrains. The Vrains decks I think have remained popular. I know Ignister has gotten multiple support. It got, and I think there was like some rumor of like Barrel Lords were going to start getting some support. The thing is, it's weird because it's like Konami loves the Vrains era decks, but they don't love Vrains, right? We didn't get a manga. Don't get me started about the Revolver cosplayer and OCG structures. There's just this weird disconnect that I don't think will ever be explained. It's very strange. Yuzu is the honorary Arc 5 main pro tag. She got the name for it. Yuzu is the honorary main pro tag of Arc 5. I agree. I knew they'd phase off Aoi later in the show. She was so cool. Yeah. And that's how I felt too. Her introduction in Vrains was so cool because she shows up, she's like an idol, she's waving to all her fans, and then she saves Playmaker. Playmaker was going to fall. He was falling off of his, again, oh my gosh, failing me. The surfboards, the D-boards, thank you. D-boards. She saved him. He was beginning to fall, and it's canon in Vrains that if you fall from a great height and you like hit the virtual ground, you'll have something called mental damage. So she saved him. And I was like, this is such a cool character. And they didn't do much with her. It sucks. It really sucks. Aki was the same way. When Aki was introduced, she was like Black Rose Witch, right? Really cool. And then downplayed. Yeah, just downplayed. It's just like, it's lost potential. It's just the lost potential. Yeah. Oh, it gets a lot of character growth and self-sufficiency and confidence to do what they like is best rather than what is right along with her brothers. At least there's that. That's true. Vrains is a show about trauma and depression. And in Aoi's case, it's depression for her. She was depressed for a really long time. Being a charisma duelist, being an idol was her outlet. And Blue Angel is the exact opposite of her in terms of personality. Blue Angel was her way of being able to express herself in a way that she could not in real life. And the show does the show does explore that. So I do give them credit for that. Yeah. Konami, hear our cries. Cross your fingers that news about how popular the Yu-Gi-Oh panel was makes it back to Japan, or has already made it back to Japan. I hope people are talking. I really hope they're talking. I watched World Anime Premiere at Anime NYC, so anime announcements in the US are possible. Yep, see, it could have happened. I'm fashionably late. Sup, everyone? Hello, Blade of Chaos. Welcome. Oh man, remembering the popularity of Crow and his deck made me remember the sheer hype for Crow versus Shun. Yu-Gi-Oh! Reddit was so excited for that match. Oh man, funny story. If you don't know this story, the 5D's character designer Shuji Maruyama, they brought him back for Crow in Arc 5, and he and Hyde Emina, who was the lead animator for Arc 5, they stayed up until 3 o'clock in the morning discussing Crow's biceps. How do we best represent Crow's biceps, the most important part of his character? Crow was really loved. I think initially, I would say in the 5Ds era, people didn't really like Crow, or at least he wasn't all that popular. But over time, he became more popular. And by the Arc 5 era, people were like, it's Crow! I feel like people were more excited for Crow than they were for Jack in that show. But yeah, Crow biceps, very important. They should have the Rush Duel era English dub on Disney XD or whatever, but nowhere. Oh, they have it there, but nowhere on streaming. Yeah, this is part of the problem, right? We don't have easy access to all the shows. Even now, you can watch most of the Gallop era shows on Crunchyroll, but you can't watch Zale. Not in Japanese anyway. It's not there. Why? We don't know. We'll never know, I guess. If you want to watch Zale in Japanese, you got to go to a shady fansub website. It's really sad and weird. And the fact that, they haven't brought over the Rush shows, in Japanese, officially, is also quite sad. And then, the Vrains dub was not aired on US TV. It was aired in Canada, and I believe it was aired in Australia, but it wasn't on US TV. Just things had changed so much. I remember when The Legend of Korra was airing. In its last part, around 2012, they moved it online. You could watch Korra episodes on the Nickelodeon website. And I don't know why they didn't do that for the later Yu-Gi-Oh! Dubs. It would have made accessibility so easy. Just I feel like it has to do with what the Japanese companies want and stuff that we don't know about, because it just doesn't make any sense. It's weird. Why did Boogie Board first come to mind? Oh, man. I feel like Konami doesn't know how to handle any of the spin-offs. They cut off pieces to serve up to TCGers and never seem to process that people actually like the shows and stories therein. Again, it just has to do with the disconnect. It's what was Yu-Gi-Oh! When it was first created? It was a manga about games. All games. All games. And then somebody at Shueisha told Takahashi-sensei, your story would be more popular if you focused on one game. And, then he ended up making Magic and Wizards, and the rest is history, right? That's how the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game came to be. But it was never about that in the beginning. So, that's another thing, right? Historically, I look back and I'm like, why haven't we really had, other Yu-Gi-Oh! Shows that are not about card games? I know Capsule Monsters exists. But that was produced by 4Kids Entertainment. Okay, it doesn't count. But we could have had that. We could have had that. It didn't have to be about card games. Konami specifically wanted it to be about card games so they could sell things. And that's a shame, because it's like Takahashi Sensei's original vision was just to make a manga about games. Just games. You could have any sort of games. There was that short-lived arc in DM, Dungeon Dice Monsters, right? Trying to like explore different things. Wouldn't it be cool if like we had like an adult-rated Yu-Gi-Oh show about death games, like with like Death Tea style, like Squid Game style? I know that would never get greenlit because of the audience, but still, it would be cool. It would be cool. Can you imagine if we had a Yu-Gi-Oh show about poker? A Yu-Gi-Oh show about like Mancala, and like the Mancala pieces come to life. There's so much stuff they could do with other games. I'm just saying. Dungeons and Dragons, right? We could have more of that tabletop RPG type stuff that Takahashi Sensei was doing in the early manga. Yu-Gi-Oh! Squid Games I'd watch. People only contacting her because of her brother's position, not being seen, heard. Oh yeah, about Aoi. Yeah, true. Crow's biceps are very important. Yes. His intro was so abrupt, Jack didn't have the juice. I love early 5Ds. I really do. Did they share the same love for how to design Jack in Arc 5? I don't remember. There was an early meme in the early 5Ds fandom about Jack and his yellow couch. He never left that yellow couch. And then in Arc 5, he never left his throne. He was almost kind of like this like otherworldly godlike figure in City in Arc 5. And people are like, yeah, it's the king, but like his interactions, this is also really interesting, right? Because Arc 5 depicts Jack as part of the elite, which he was, in early 5Ds, but he came from poverty. And then Crow, they depict as always having been poor. And so when Crow is introduced in Arc 5, you're meant to sympathize with him. Versus like Jack is like this like very distant figure until he becomes an ally at some point, right? And then we know that like Crow gets carded. And I think Jack also might have gotten carded. Yeah, food versus smiles, yeah. Jack was never really a focus in Arc 5. I don't know, it's kind of interesting. But yeah, Crow's biceps, very important. The visual language of Arc 5 is actually amazing. I'm doing a video on the Shinkrou arc right now, and that's one of the bigger pluses of the show. The legacy characters are just different enough to be new. Yeah. I have mixed feelings about Asuka and Edo in that show. The way that they were depicted. Because Asuka's whole thing is like, I'm trying to find teacher, right? And Edo's whole thing is, I'm the leader of the army that is carding everybody. And then you have Kaito, right? Kaito, I think, is the most interesting out of all of the legacy characters that they brought into Arc 5. Because Kaito's whole thing is, you will repent. Are you ready to repent? Vengeance. Right? And then, but yeah, overall, I kind of feel like they didn't really do enough with the legacy characters. And I wish that hadn't been the case. I wish they had done a lot more. It would have been cool. I guess that brings up another question. Do you think they'll ever stop censoring and kid-friendlying the dubs? Good question. No, I don't think so. The reason why is because Konami Cross Media is based in New York. I found out recently that their president worked for 4Kids Entertainment. Their current president. Her name is like Kristen Gray. I think her name is Kristen Gray. She worked at 4Kids. So she can't, she's approaching her current job as a person who was part of that era. But the thing is, I don't think Konami I don't think Konami wants anything else because I feel like if they did, they would have stopped it by now. So, no, I don't think so. I think this is just kind of the legacy of Yu-Gi-Oh! They will never stop doing that. Of course, right now we don't have any weekly anime, but no, I don't think so. I think they will continue to censor and um, cut parts of the show if we have future movies. They did that with Dark Side of Dimensions. Um, Not much with like cuts, but like the jokes were very for kids era, right? Just yeah, I don't know. I don't think it'll change honestly. And yeah, name changes that's not going away. That's like part of the legacy of Yu-Gi-Oh. Unfortunately, um, it's like they're waiting for us to pirate again. You said it, not me. Capcom movie. Ah, that would be fun actually. I would love to see the original Mokuba in his element poisoning people and then see him be redeemed. It would be cute. It'd be really cute. This little monster and his capsule monsters. The couch. Yeah, Mina and Lydia remember the couch meme. The yellow couch. Jack X yellow couch. Food versus Smiles. Team Meishi. I like how Jack was just kind of ended up being more of a rival to Yuya and than Reiji did. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because I don't really consider Reiji to be a rival. He doesn't challenge Yuya in the way that a rival does. It's just like Reiji is like 10 steps ahead of everybody all the time. He's like Ryoken in that way. Do you consider Ryoken to really be a rival? Yeah, not really. I mean, he's a rival archetype, but does he really like oppose the main character? No. Not in the way that like Kaiba, the GX rivals, and 5Ds and the Zale rivals did. It's kind of like more like the rival archetypes in Arc 5 and Vrains are like their whole purpose is to drive the plot forward and to like help exposition the greater story. They're not like true rivals in the sense. It's kind of interesting like how their roles changed over time. Yeah. Jack was there to crash spectacularly. Oh my gosh. The way that they used to animate Jack crashing out in 5Ds was so funny. He's just flying into the air. Oh, and when I was watching Go Rush with Rarity yesterday, they had that with the people that Udius was dueling. They had them just flying into the air. It was so funny. I was like, this is so nostalgic. That's one of the reasons why I was like, this is so Yu-Gi-Oh. I've always thought legacy characters aren't really alt universe characters, but the same characters reborn in respective dimensions after Ray split reality into 4. Yeah, that's true. I think I would agree with that. They're not the same characters. They look the same, but they're not. Also, the fact that there are no protagonists in Arc 5 from the original shows. They don't exist. Which I've always found really interesting. I'm like, where's Judai? Where's Yusei, right? Where's Yuma, right? They don't exist. Yeah, I have a lot of like thoughts about Arc 5. I personally feel like the dimensions were split from information that existed in the original world. And in that original world, these protagonists didn't exist. It's a world where they didn't exist. It's like a alternate universe where Judai, Yusei, and Yuma, and even Yugi never existed, right? And that's also probably why those dimensions are so messed up. Kaito was great in Arc 5, Man on a Mission. Yeah, I loved him in Arc 5. I mean, I love him in Zale more, but oh man, you will repent. Kind of makes sense of Jack's shift in personality. He didn't learn the lessons 5D's Jack did. He just was a good duelist with an inflated out ego. Yeah, and he was also being put on a pedestal by Tops in Arc 5. He never had a reason to grow beyond that. It's like, you're the king. Okay, I'm the king. Right. Terrible names are bygone tradition now. I will continue to be a sub-only watcher. That's fair. That's fair. For me, anyway, for Yu-Gi-Oh, I prefer the sub because I want to see the entire story. And also some of the jokes, even in the later dubs, are they're not so great. Although I will say, the voice acting for English has gotten better over time. Much better, much better. And I think that has to do with the way that the current era of English voice actors have been trained. Whereas back in the day, the 4Kids era voice actors, they were kind of more like classical, sort of like theater, like in New York. We had more different types of voice actors in later eras because of the internet. So it's like now you don't have to go into the studio to record. You can record virtually, which has opened the door to so many different talent who traditionally didn't have access to that. Like, you had to be in New York, you had to be in, I think, Houston or Austin and Los Angeles. And if you weren't in those three places, you couldn't be an anime voice actor in the US, at least. Let's see. Kaiba's line about firing the guy who made the bottle he crushed was pretty funny. It was. I'm not saying DSOD didn't have funny jokes in English. It did. But perfectly coiffed hair. They're just very different movies. They're just different movies. Also, the other thing, English dub DSOD is canon to the DM anime. Japanese DSOD is canon to the DM manga, and that's a big difference. That's a really big difference. At least there are fun one-liners and stuff in the dub. Yeah. Shingo and Arc 5 rival, don't change my mind. I agree. Shingo was great. I liked him a lot, actually. He was really funny. Man, I loved Reiji so much in Arc 5. His whole big brain plays and the crazy orchestra music he kept bringing always made me so excited. Reiji was cool. His dueling was really cool. I love those ragdoll physics. I found a snippet of fic I wrote for Arc 5 Godwins. Oh, yeah. I think I remember you writing about that. I might be wrong, but I feel like kids really aren't watching the newest Yu-Gi-Oh series anymore. I wonder what's the point of keeping the censorship. That's a good question. What is the point? Who are they trying to market to in this current era? I feel like it's not kids. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know why they're continuing to do that old style, because it's like, if the majority of people who are watching something are adults, maybe the Japanese side for Konami is just thinking like, this is nostalgic, so let's put on the nostalgia, right? And the nostalgia will sell. And they kind of do that, with the merchandise even. Because a lot of the like DM merchandise that has been released, at least in the US, it has a very like specific sort of vibe to it. It definitely feels like they're going off in nostalgia, right? Yeah. It's so wild, the narrator of all That's funny. Were there a lot of kids or more adults at the panel? Adults. I don't remember seeing kids. I do know there was one kid. I can't remember if she was in the Yu-Gi-Oh panel or if she was in Suda-san's 30th anniversary career panel. But no, it was mostly adults. And I think that just has to do with the fandom aging over time. Also, the TCG player base is also aging, I've been told. Somebody told me that right now the average age of a TCG player is 25. Or they're over 25, which means maybe the average age is closer to 30. They're not bringing in kids. And kids are interested. They're interested in other things. I think Pokemon is still pretty popular with kids. But you have you have the YouTube streamer era, right? Um, a lot of kids are watching streamers, right? They're being raised on the internet. Not so much cartoons anymore. I mean, like my god sister, she's turning 13 this year. I don't think she's ever watched a cartoon. I don't think she's watched any animated movies in her life. I mean, that's kind of crazy to me because by the time I was her age, I had already watched so many Disney movies and other things, you know? Um, it's just it's just not there. It's like if it's on streaming, yeah, K-pop Demon Hunters, exactly. If it's on streaming, kids will watch it. But other than that, nah, maybe not really. I don't think kids are not playing Yu-Gi-Oh anymore. It's kind of sad. Um, and Konami has a lot to do with that. So I just saw adults at the panel, to be honest. Yeah. I noticed them online. I noticed them, in the room. And when we were leaving the panel room after the panel, I also just saw adults. So, um, yeah. Minecraft Let's Play. I mean, the TCG is already pretty inaccessible to adults. Price is learning curve. No wonder kids aren't getting into the TCG anymore. You also have to think about collecting things, right? The price of collecting things. And also the economy makes a big difference because if parents are not buying things for their kids, the kids are not going to get into those things unless they organically got into them through the internet, Because when I was a kid, I mean, obviously I didn't have money, right? So as a kid, so like whatever my mom was buying for me, things that like weren't available freely on TV that I could watch, that was all my access, So things are expensive. And there's this concept in economics, right? It's the concept of a normal good and an inferior good. What does that mean? A normal good is something that people continue to buy when the economy gets bad. An inferior good is something that people stop buying when the economy gets bad. Inferior goods become luxury goods, or they become things that people just don't buy anymore, right? And so like you're collecting stuff, right? Like you're collecting hobbies, your cards and things. When the economy is bad, those become inferior goods. They're not normal goods. People don't need card games to survive. At least not in the real world, right? People need to buy food. They need to pay for their kids' education. They need to, buy fuel for their car, fuel for public transportation, whatever. And hobby things becomes not important. Parents don't buy them, right? I think it also has something to do with just the shift of generations. Because right now, the parents of Gen Alpha are millennials. And millennials grew up on the internet. And a lot of millennials, had collectible things as kids, right? But, they might be looking back at what their childhood was like, and they now look at the current era, and they're like, why would I buy physical media? Why would I buy, like, physical products when I can just go on the Apple Store or, Amazon Prime or Netflix, and I can purchase something digitally for my kid, right? And I also feel that part of that also has to do with just the way that millennials and some older Gen Z view collecting in general. Like if they're not in fandom, they don't want clutter. If you watch like videos on TikTok, right? A lot of it is like basic stuff, like sad beige mom, Like I don't want my kids' clutter ruining my perfect lifestyle. And I think that's really sad. I think it's really sad. But now it's like kids are raised on the iPad, right? Kids are raised on what is available on streaming. A lot of households don't even have cable anymore, if they ever had it. A lot of households might not even have a TV in their house now, or a desktop computer, right? So, like, you have to think about like how things are accessible, how we get access to things. And niche hobby collecting, that becomes less accessible over time, especially as the prices go up. People look at that and they're like, you know, why am I going to buy physical cards for my kid when I can just load up a certain amount of money on their Apple account and they can spend however much they want in Roblox or something, right? Because when I was 8 years old, right, Pokemon cards first came out. Pokemon cards were like the big thing, right? And not to say that Pokemon cards were affordable; they were really expensive, actually. But everybody had them, everybody had them, and that's what we were trading on the play yard, And just like, what was the interest? What were people watching? Where were they watching it? Where were they accessing things? That has all changed in the current era. Yeah. Imagine reading the paragraph of rules on cards in a deck nowadays and trying to memorize memorize them all. Yeah. And again, I mean, that's why rush duels became a thing, right? Because there was just too much stuff. There were too many things to read and follow on the cards by that era. And I think rush duels as a concept are really good, right? You want to simplify something in a way that a new generation can pick it up. And from what I've been told, rush duel is actually very popular in Japan. So it could become popular internationally if Konami cared. But yeah, don't know why. Don't know why they don't care. Scalpers. Yeah, scalpers. People buying things just to make money off of them. Like Labubus, Anything that gets sold by like Pop Market, right? You got these adults going in and they're first in line and they're buying, whatever, and they're getting like the limited edition thing and they're selling it. It's like a kid could have that. A parent could have gone in and bought that for their kid. Instead, you bought it and you're going to sell it on eBay and make, I don't know, $400, right? Yeah, scalpers suck. Pot of Greed is banned from the game on top of that. What does Pot of Greed do? The VHS rewinder is becoming unrecognizable. I feel like now, even DVDs are becoming unrecognizable to the youngest generation. DVDs, and CDs. Although they know CDs because a lot of these fandoms, like especially like K-pop fandoms and stuff, they do CD releases. And if you want to support your idol, like on the music shows, you have to buy a physical release, which has a CD in it. So kids know about that. And younger Gen Z knows about CDs. But yeah, VHS, gone. Audio tapes, gone. DVDs, gone. I'm sure at some point Blu-ray will be gone too. But yeah, if you like something, put it on physical media. You never know when it's going to disappear from a streaming service. It could be taken off tomorrow. That happened with Crunchyroll. Half the library disappeared. It happened with, I think, HBO Max. They took off half the library. Things get removed from Netflix. So, and then, things that are on YouTube could be deleted at any time. So if you want to keep something long-term, download it. Put it on a external hard drive. Hold on to it. Because you never know when it'll be gone. And also, in a future era, you can talk back to this current era and you can reference those things because you kept them. Right? Although it technically wasn't allowed, I downloaded the quarter century stuff from this February because I knew it was going to be deleted off of YouTube for copyright reasons. It's gone now. You can't watch it anywhere. So me downloading that, I downloaded a part of fandom history. And now we can enjoy that, You just never know when things are going to be gone and when they're going to become inaccessible. And also, if you want to get like your younger cousins or maybe children someday into this franchise or another franchise, you got to have physical media, especially if it's not being preserved by the companies. You don't want your favorite thing to become lost media, because someday everything will become lost media if it's not archived. So there's that Polish CEO who defended stealing a cat from a child. I don't understand some adults, honestly, but that's a whole other discussion. Adults don't know when to step aside. Yeah, CDs and vinyls. Vinyl coming back was really surprising for me. Like, that like predates my generation by like 20 years. Vinyl coming back. Um, I feel like there are a lot of audiophiles these days though, who want their music to sound as good as possible, and a lot of the compressed music that's available on streaming services, it's not good. The quality is not good if you care about that kind of stuff. So vinyl, yeah. But I also feel like it has to do with the collecting of things. Just like how CDs came back because of collecting. I don't know if vinyl will continue to be popular in the next 10 years. All of your, whatever, Taylor Swift, BTS vinyls they may end up in the bargain bin at a Goodwill, right? But yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon, vinyl. Yeah. Did that see you justify it? Like, first comes, first serve. If the kid was quicker, he would have gotten it. Yeah. Some adults are just rotten. Where do these shows that get removed go? Into the ether? Into the vault? Lost on somebody's hard drive and never recovered? Yeah, we don't know. I remember there was like a big thing about like the Infinity Train show being taken offline. People were like, if we hadn't downloaded that before HBO Max took it off, it would have been gone. Nobody would have had access, because there's no physical media of it. And there's no physical media of a lot of shows these days. They don't even print Blu-rays. It's like it's on streaming and then it's gone. It's not available anywhere else. So I feel like I'm not going to say that everybody has a right to media. I don't think that's true. But I feel like if you want to ensure that people can access media in the future, you should archive it. How you choose to archive it, we won't get into. But, archive things that you like. You don't know when they're going to be gone. Preserved in its history. Yeah, there's this website that I found, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, maybe longer than that. It was the Nielsen ratings for Japan, specifically for DM and GX, and maybe 5Ds. And it was because I had archived that data, because that website is gone now. Because I had archived that, I can pull up the ratings for DM and GX. I can tell you what percentage of Japan was watching those shows back in the day. That's not anywhere that people can see it now. It's not publicly available. I found it on some random website and I downloaded it. And now I can reference that for fandom history. And now I can tell you that at DM's height, it was getting 10% of the entire country watching. I think GX had 3% at its height, 5Ds had 1%. But again, I can tell you that because I archived it. So, but yeah, so I guess I'll just wrap up this discussion just by saying, do what you can, do what you can to make a nice fandom. But do what you can to contribute. I know sometimes it can be kind of lonely as a content creator. I mean, I'm a writer, right? When you don't get much traction on what you publish. But I guarantee you there are people that are reading it. There are people that are looking at your art. There are people that are looking at your cosplays who appreciate it. Contribute what you can, and help keep this fandom alive. Even if Konami doesn't want to. So I hope we get a new Yu-Gi-Oh anime. I hope we do. But if we don't, then we have the fandom. So fandom will continue to support each other. Just like those Vrains fans who have been watching every week, every Wednesday since Vrains ended. They're now on their third iteration, watching one episode of the show every week and getting people excited into the show. And, you know, people on this side getting their friends into a show. Like, just do what you can to, like, you know, spread the love. And when you see negativity, push back against it. You know, don't be quiet. Just, if somebody wants to divide the fandom, push back against it. You know, don't be aggressive, but just push back. Because a lot of people now want engagement. And engagement is easy when you make people upset. So, counteract what you see. And push positivity in the fandom. And we will continue to have a nice fandom for years to come, hopefully. So, being kind and supporting each other vocally and finding the right people. Yeah, you just gotta form your circle. Put people who you like, who get along with other people, who don't cause drama in your circle. And those people will stay around for a very long time. I have had friends in this fandom for, you know, the same friends for 18 years. And I've known other people in the fandom for 10 years and 5 years, and just keep forming bonds, you know? Just keep forming bonds and keep showing people how special this franchise is and how much you love things. And, you know, be the person who spreads positivity, you know? Be the person who tells other people to watch things. Sometimes when I have tweets that go viral, I will just reply back and I'll say, thanks for the likes, please watch X show, right? Like, it's not about me. It's like, I want people to watch Vrains, I want people to watch 5Ds, I want people to watch whatever, right? If you have a show, or if you have a post that goes viral, if you have some artwork that goes viral that you've drawn, if you have a fic that you've written and it gets popular, tell people to watch the show. Just tell people to watch the show. You know, how many people out of that will actually watch, we don't know. But it shows that people care about these properties. And that there's a community to engage with. And that's really important. Especially for people who lurk. When they don't see that people are engaging in a positive manner, they shy away and they leave. So, if you continue to want to see people in this fandom creating things and engaging in the fandom into the future, you got to do your part. You got to do your part. So, glad to be in a circle with you. Me too, Caro. I hope we can be friends for another 18 years. Me too, Lydia. Did someone say bonds? You say, is that you? Kizuna Tonakama, right? Yeah. Reach out to connect. Exactly. If you see people in the fandom who you haven't seen before and they seem excited, you know, befriend them. Try to befriend them. Follow them. Say hi. I recently have reached out to some people and I've been like, hey, you know, congratulations on finishing Vrains. Congratulations on, you know, watching this. Are you enjoying this, right? It's just to make people feel welcome. It's a small gesture that makes people feel welcome. And when they feel welcome, they engage. And maybe they'll make things. Maybe they'll draw art. Maybe they'll do cosplay. Maybe they'll write things for the fandom. And then as a fandom, we will have more things to enjoy. So I know sometimes it can be difficult when you see that people are not engaging and that people are not creating things. That can be disheartening. Especially when it feels like the English side is not doing much. But you just got to keep putting out things into the world. If you want things to come back, you got to put things out into the world. There's no way around it. Yeah, so I did that recently too. I want the excitement to continue and spread outward. Yeah, just keep putting out positivity and good vibes and show people how much you love something. And it will engage people and get them excited. you know? So, yeah. I think I'm going to end the stream here. We've gone for like an hour and 50 minutes. I think this was a really good discussion, and I hope everybody had a really good time. And yeah, thanks for stopping by on this Labor Day in the US or a Monday, where else you are in the world. Um, and I hope that you have a good rest of your week. If you're joining me on Saturday for Zelda, it's the same time on Saturday. I'll see you then. If not, I hope that you just have a good time in the fandom. And maybe I'll see you for a future Yu-Gi-Oh stream. Maybe a future collab stream with Rarity or some other people. So, have fun and take care. Thanks. Bye.